All right. This is a special live portion of our Supporters Club podcast. If you're not already a Supporters Club member, you need to join the Supporters Club today. We're recording our Supporters Club bonus podcast. Decided to let the masses get a special part of it. Join the Supporters Club today. Let'sRun.com/subscribe. What we're going to do here is watch Jakob Ingebrigtsen's final in the European Indoor Championships, the 1500. This is the 2021 Olympic 1500 meter champion, 2024 Olympic 5,000 meter champion. I think a lot of people watching are assuming Ingebrigtsen has this in the bag. I will just point out that there's one member in this final, not named Ingebrigtsen, who has run 3:47 in the mile and has a 1:43 800 meter PB. Pretty impressive. I believe his name is Habs of France, right, John?
Yes. I don't view him as a threat to Ingebrigtsen. I think Jakob's a lot better at running than he is, but I know how you love those 800 meter PBs, Robert.
No, I don't. But when we go to an outdoor championship, if he's only 2 seconds better than everybody, we're worried that he might lose. Indoors, why wouldn't the same concern also be there? But what is fascinating to me is the fact that we're watching this live and discussing it. Championship racing, when the results actually mean something, are awesome. Like, I loved watching his prelim yesterday when he cruised, but he made an inside pass, and I thought, oh my God, is he going to get DQ'd? Whereas if you're watching a time trial, nobody cares. So you've got Farkin in here, of the OAC, Isaac Nader of Portugal, Neil Gorley. Those are some of the guys that could spring the upset. Now, some of you may be slightly ahead. We've tried to sync our streams ourselves, the three of us, so that we're the same. So right now, Guy Vart of France is running out onto the track. So if you're watching live with us, try to get with us. Into Euros, if he was going to lose, he was more likely to lose in the 3,000 because it's a little bit more loaded. I was thinking that just off the top of my head. He's got Niels Laros, the up-and-comer, the other Brit that's run 7:27 recently. But the 3,000 is just his wheelhouse. Like the 5,000, I don't know. Like these guys may not be as accomplished as those runners, but do you think that the threat of loss here is higher than the 3,000? What do you guys think?
No, I think he's more likely to. I think he'll win both, but if he was going to get beaten in one of them, I would think it's the 3K just because they're better runners in that race. I will say, though,
he's much more vulnerable as a 1,500 meter runner than as a distance runner. There he is, Jakob, in the all red now. The new singlet, Adidas has picked up the sponsorship of Norway.
The one thing I would say is the only time he was beaten in this championship was in 2019, and it was a tactical 1,500 against Marcin Lewandowski, who was an 800 specialist for a long time and moved up to the 1,500. So I know Farkin's got great top-end speed. Like, he's a guy who, if it goes slow, I would think is probably the biggest threat here, but I don't think Jakob will let it go slow enough for him to be a factor. I think he'll control it, and my guess is he would just do what he's done the last 2 Euro champs outdoors, which is get to the front and, just keep getting it faster and faster and faster, every 100 for the last 800 or 1K or so.
Some people in the commentating are asking, where's Josh Kerr? Would have been nice, John. We were at USA Indoors. We had the same hotel as at Brooks Beach. We should have said, hey, Mac, he said he thought about taking a wild card to China, but it was too much to travel. We should have said, well, the travel to Europe's a lot easier. We'll see you at Euro Indoors. So he's not here. Look, as a former coach here, in case you don't know, men's distance coach at Cornell University for 10 years, a decade here. If I'm an Ingebrigtsen's coach, this is indoors. It's a weird finish. It's a short finishing straight. I think you've got it, and you're Ingebrigtsen. I don't even mess around like I do outdoors, where he likes to run behind for the first turn and then move up around 200 meters, between 200 and 300. I don't even risk that. I go right to the front and squeeze it down. Now, maybe if you don't want to get out hard, that's fine, but he should not try to do any inside passes like he did yesterday. That's
all right. I just want to make sure we're synced up here. They're on the start line now.
Yes.
Oh, they're being called back. Stand
John,
up, stand up.
You're 1
And-
second ahead of me. So don't like if he loses at the line, don't go. "Ah!" So I guess going behind for like maybe I'm trying to think where the term here is a 1500. Like if he wants to stay behind for 300 or 400, that's fine, I guess. But I would make a huge move out wide and just run the extra distance. Like if he's not in the lead at 800, I'm going to be stunned on this. And he goes out to the back right away.
Yep.
As predicted here in the comments. For those people who are supporters club members, and we did about a 30-minute show before this, someone saying in the comments, because we didn't have the sound on, saying Georgia Bell had the flu. So that would make sense why she got beat in the men's 1500. And John, do we know why they put little contact, nobody fell. Jakob been dead last on the first lap for people just listening. Listening to this as a podcast or supporters club members.
Some people saying, John, your audio is not good, so make sure your mic is pushed in. Podcast listeners will have perfect audio because we have local recordings. So they're 300. He's still in last. He's about 30.5 for the leaders here.
I mean, Jakob's in last.
What was the 400?
If I'm Hobbs now, I just try
an
to take it and front run him. Like that's your best chance, I think. Now, let him try to catch up to you. You're 115 in. I mean, I guess he's less than a second behind, but you'd have to pass all of those guys. You're just hammering, and I almost think this is your chance. Don't let it slow and let him close. Have an easy way to close this huge gap.
Okay, he's going to go here. I like this. This is 550 meters in. Don't mess around.
Oh, just a disaster for Farken. Farken tried to track Jakob and got cut up in the mess, and he goes down. That's just that's indoor running for you. But
and so John.
Wait, John's way ahead of us. What are you guys at? I'm at 146.
Yeah, John skipped way ahead there. He was a second ahead. Now he's way ahead. So if between 550 and 600, Ingebrigtsen went to the front. I actually like this. But what I wanted was a big decisive move. What I hate more than anything in indoor track is you move to the front, you don't get there. He went hard about 550 meters and got to the front, had to run a little bit of right around 600 on the turn. And now he's just going to squeeze it down. That was a 29.5, but for him, it was probably a 28 or flat or something like that. Coming up on, what is this, 900? 28.69 for Ingebrigtsen. I'd be stunned if he loses this, but he does have the 347, 143 guy right behind him.
Well, and this is one thing about positioning stuff, right? Hobbs is perfectly positioned. That's where you want to be. Meanwhile, Neil Gurley is back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th place, has way too much ground to make up. Neil Gurley isn't Cole Hawker. Like there is 0% chance Neil Gurley can win this race. Well, I say that yet. What happened last year at World Indoors?
What do you mean? Hawker was farther than that back in the Olympics, and plus, a lot of these guys. Let's be honest, they're not running for the win; they're running for a medal.
This is indoors. Indoors, it's much harder to pass. But you did have last year World Indoors. Jakob glances over. 27.2 at the bell. 313 roughly. So this is not, it's going to be what, a 340 race?
Oh my God, the Portuguese guy's coming up on him. Holy shit.
Coming around the final bend, Jakob's leading. Hobbs right behind him. The Portuguese guy's right on his shoulder. Here comes Jakob. John probably knows the results. Not in doubt, folks. Jakob Ingebrigtsen, your European champion, 336.57. I mean, it was a clear 1, 2, 3.
So 27-2, 26-1. If you're a Jared Naguse fan, though, you're thinking Naguse beat Hobbs by more at Millrose than Jakob just beat Hobbs at Euros. Were you guys a little bit worried with about 80 meters, 100 meters to go when they were still right there?
I did expect more of a gap with about 80 meters to go. But in the home straight, yeah, I think Jakob didn't get to top gear until maybe that very final turn. And he looked very strong. He looked like he still had a lot left. Maybe he was saving something. They were a little closer at that point than I thought with 100 to go. But yeah, he did. I think he did well getting to the lead. Like in the 1500, as soon as Jakob got to the lead, those guys were in trouble because it's just hard to pass. And when you're as good as Ingebrigtsen, like getting around him, he's just going to be able to basically answer whatever you have. So, yeah.
Okay, they're showing a replay. By the way, the top three were all clear. They were like 336.5, 336.9, and then the medal, and then Gurley was pretty far back and forth.
Nader was third, 337. Gurley was like a second back and forth.
They're showing the fall with Farkin. The blame here is this Portuguese guy who ends up third. I might be willing to DQ for this. They're not going to do it probably. But basically what happened was Farkin was trying to follow Ingebrigtsen, but then the Portuguese guy who was on the inside sees Ingebrigtsen out there too and decided he wanted to follow him. He just jutted out from like lane 1 out to like lane 3 and bumped into a bunch of people and then caused a chain reaction. You can't do that. So I wouldn't be totally stunned if he gets stripped of his medal for that. Rose Runner, Niels Laros is more dangerous in the 3000. I do. I mean, I think the 3000, I mean, remember, this is the greatest 3000 meter runner out over 7:17. Hobbs, by the way, is quite happy with his silver. But Laros is a 143 guy. He's viewed as the next Ingebrigtsen. I just think the 3000 is too much of Ingebrigtsen's wheelhouse. But imagine what happens by the race, Rose. The race is not tomorrow, it's Sunday. But if we're talking on the next podcast and Niels Laros is the European 3000 meter champion, all bets are off the table then, because then I think he might be. Wow, the 1500 would just be even more interesting.
People are saying in the comments that the audio is cutting out. Can anyone else confirm that? I hear you guys perfectly, so it's really not a problem. And if hey, we just did this as a bonus. This really is for our supporters club members. This is supposed to be a podcast. I don't know what's going on. We'll reach out to our provider, but I hear both you guys, all you guys perfectly. So I don't know if it's just one-off, guys. If everyone on YouTube's having a problem, or if it's, I think it's going to be the YouTube issue because some guys are saying it's a problem every 2 seconds. One guy's saying it's fine.
I don't see why. I'm watching this full of Falcon again. Doesn't seem like it's Nader's fault to me. I think as soon as Jakob goes moving by from the front, everyone tries to move out and wants to get in position because they know that's the move. So I don't see how it's Nader's fault specifically. I see a French guy who tries to do the same thing that Falcon did when he goes by, but I'm not seeing how Isaac Nader caused that pile up. I don't think he's going to get DQ'd, Robert.
All right, Luis Barraza in the comments is saying, has Let's Run gone like Google and Facebook and other big corporations? I can't get a response to my email. I checked out. He did email us. Some supporters club members have claimed their private podcast feeds dropping out. Go to the supporters club section of the website and just re-add it. That's what we told somebody. He said it works fine. Sorry, Luis. We love you. All right, guys. From this race, and we have another one tomorrow. I am more excited about seeing Jakob race Laros than anything. But the 3000 is Jakob's best event. If Laros can do anything to him there, my God, like then it's all on for everything. But having watched this 1500, I guess it could have been more impressive, but nothing changes for me. I think after the world record, we've seen what we've seen indoors. I think, it's on for Tokyo, essentially. We're going to see some version of what we've seen the last 3 years. This guy's lost the last 3 years. We're all fascinated. He's still the alpha male in this event. We're going to see if he can win it. It's much harder being the favorite than anyone else.
I mean, he's the alpha male on the circuit. I don't know if there is an alpha male in championship races because we've had 4 different winners the last 4 years. I mean, Cole Hawker has the crown right now. But yeah, in terms of the circuit, Jakob is still the guy. And this race, like, I'm with you, Weldon. I expected him to win it. He controlled it as soon as he got to the front. This doesn't change anything. I know he's in good shape because he set that world record a few weeks ago. And the 3K is the race I'm really interested in watching because it's going to be a measuring stick for Laros. But in terms of this one, he was significantly better than these guys in the field on paper, and he beat everyone he was supposed to beat. He didn't look like, it wasn't like, oh, they're right there on the shoulder and he had to outlean them or anything. Like, he won. So I don't have any huge changes to my opinion based on this race.
Look, he's still extremely vulnerable in the 1500 at Worlds Outdoors.
Of course.
That's the way it is. Like, this was not, I mean, these guys, 347, 143 is good, but these aren't this isn't Nagoose, this isn't Curve, this isn't Hawker at the peak of their form. And he won convincingly, but it was, someone in doubt with 100 meters to go. By the way, I'll take back what I said about Nader. Nader actually started to come out. He was trying to move out, and then Jakob was coming around. Jakob actually was cutting in, and they kind of bumped, and then Nader then bumped somebody else. I guess God, I don't think they did DQ. I think it's just indoor racing. That's just what happens. What there was one. My big takeaway in this was a comment from Jakob, in the Norwegian press after the semifinal yesterday, and I thought this was weird. I mean, he says something like, if I'm trying to find it was in the European Championships. The championships is all about medals. I do not think we can expect crazy fast times. But in the finals, all the athletes will do things that they believe will give them the most amount of success. So I guess we will see tomorrow. Like, he's saying that, but is he just talking about Euros because he's doing the double and it's 4 races in 4 days, in 3 days, in 4 days? Because last time I checked at the Olympics, he tried to run a crazy fast time from the front. He basically tried to run a world record from the front.
Because he thought that was his best way of winning. Look, this is the thing with Jakob, is he has said that running hard from the front in those championship finals, he thinks that's his best chance to win. And then he also sort of tacks on this thing, it's also the hardest way to win, and I want to do it when no one's ever done it before, even though Timothy Cheruiyot did it in Doha in 2019. I think that's just sort of him adding a little braggadocio, saying, that's the way I try to win, and it's also the hardest and most impressive way to win. But if he had Cole Hawker's kick, I'm not sure he'd be taking that approach. I don't buy the argument that he's doing it just because that's the hardest way to win. I think he's doing it because he thinks it's his best way to win.
All in the Game wants to know what we think about Grand Slam's Track's TV and streaming partners that were announced outside of the U.S. TNT Sports will air it in the UK. Eurosport will broadcast it in Europe and Asia. I don't know what to say other than I'm glad that it's not, that it's actually got a legitimate TV partner. That's point number one. Point number two is, though, I have no idea about the financial side. Who's paying who? Did they pay Grand Slam Track? Who's producing it? Who's paying for that? So money talks when it comes to.
Well, it's just good to be on a big platform. I don't really care about money at this point. Get eyeballs on it. And also, this thing is not on great times in Europe. It's around like midnight in Europe some of the time. Certain days it's a little bit earlier. But like some of the right, I think, or actually not. Some of the races are pretty good timing, right? I think, John, maybe
some of them, but I would say about half of them, the TV windows aren't great for Europe. And also TNT Sports, like, cable's quite expensive in the UK. So are people going to be subscribing to TNT just to watch this thing?
No, John, but people subscribe to ESPN just to watch track. No, like, cable's expensive in the United States as well.
No, but this isn't ESPN. It's like more expensive than the equivalent of ESPN.
But a soccer fan or something has TNT and Eurosport. Like, hardcore sports fans are going to have this. It's as major of a platform as you can get. So outside of on free TV.
I think it's a good thing. They've got major platforms that's going to be broadcasting on. And like you, I'm not as concerned. Like, how much were they paid for this, or have they just given away the rights? I don't know. But it's better to be on platforms with name recognition, and Eurosport and TNT Sports that has, and Max, I guess, is also going to be streaming some of the stuff in some of these territories.
Did you, speaking of Grand Slam Track, we're less than a month away. Did you guys hear Vernon Norwood on the Noah Lyles, Rye Benjamin, Grant Holloway podcast at all?
I did. I listened to the whole thing today.
Actually, I'm not sure I heard the end. But and also, it must have been taped before the TV thing came out because the US TV thing's been announced and they act like there wasn't US TV.
I think it was recorded during the New Balance Indoor Grand Prix at the start of February.
But it's interesting. Their biggest criticism of Grand Slam track, John, well, I'll see if you agree, was what?
I feel like it was the TV thing, was it not?
I feel like it was the doubling.
Oh, well, I think that was a Rye thing. I think Rye
And Noah.
Rye
And
seemed
Grant.
to be more
All
critical.
three said it. All
Grant-
three said it. Vernon
Grant
Norwood
Holiday
would take the money. Vernon Norwood is dying to get in that thing. He would probably pay an entry fee to get in. This maybe if they need to raise money, charge athletes $5,000. You know, whatever. That's a joke. Charge athletes $5,000 and then pay them 10 for last place. But like Vernon Norwood would bend over backwards to get in Grand Slam track. But these other guys, since you were saying the schedule doesn't work that well for them. I mean, some of the criticism I thought was not that great, but like there was a Twitter thread yesterday, and Michael Johnson was sort of criticizing the pacing lights. He's like, people want to see at Europeans. He's like, this shows that people want to see racing, and I agreed. I'm like, we don't always want to see time trials, but no sprint event has pacing and whatnot. But like, is what I just keep coming back to. Track is so simple, it's so pure, it's so easy to watch. And now we're going to watch something when it ends. We're not going to know necessarily who won the bigger event. It's going to take some figuring out to be. I don't necessarily think that's the best way to present track, but I hope I'm proven wrong. Like, it'll be exciting to find out. They're going to have pretty good people. They don't have all the stars as shown by this. The emphasis on doubling, I just don't get, but it is what it is.
Well, yeah, that's also, I forgot that's your stance on it, is that you're not a fan of the doubling thing. I mean, I think in the distance races, I don't think it makes sense. And in general, I don't think it's,
By the way, I don't
best
like
idea.
errors on the podcast. Jonathan Galt may have been born in England, but cable TV there is significantly cheaper than the US, according to my research just
according
now.
to what research? Like Google AI?
Yeah,
What research are you citing?
You can get a Sky TV package for about £44 a month. That in the TNT Sports package is about 20 extra, so it's about £64 a month, which is like $80, which is probably less than what I pay in the US. And I'm getting mass in them, but I'm paying about $125 a month here.
20 pounds a month just for the TNT Sports package? That sounds quite a lot, actually. Anyway, I'm going to address this doubling thing because I listened to the podcast. I feel like, one, Grant Holloway wasn't on that episode, so he didn't offer any input in that one. Two, Rye Benjamin, if you listen to him do any of these interviews after races, he's always talking about cost-benefit analysis for races. He's a guy who has had a number of injuries, and he's often raced through them at the championships, but he's always weighing, what is this race worth to me? Because my injury risk is going up by competing. And I don't think that's always the case with other athletes. I think Rye is a bit more fragile as an athlete, just his body, not like mentally fragile, but I think when he pushes himself hard, he's opening himself up to an injury risk. So he's very judicious about the races he does run. And I think for him, running two hard races of 400 and 400 hurdles a day apart, or maybe back-to-back days in April, and then doing it again the first weekend of May, that to him is not worth the added injury risk of, maybe he gets a setback and that affects his world championship chances. So I can understand why that's an issue for him. But I did find it was interesting. I took down some quotes from this episode, and Rye was saying, we have a product that works. Diamond League works. People can complain about it all they want, but it actually works. It's a structure that works. And I just found it very interesting coming from Rye because he barely races on the Diamond League. Do you guys know how many Diamond League races Rye Benjamin ran in 2024?
0 or 1?
1. He went to Monaco and ran the 400 hurdles there, but that was it. 2023, he ran two Diamond Leagues. One was the pre-classic, which he's required to as a Nike athlete, and he ran in Doha. So the structure works for a lot of athletes, but in terms of Rye Benjamin, I think he's a great ambassador for the sport. I'm not trying to rip him, but he doesn't does the Diamond League structure actually work for him? Because he doesn't really participate in it very often.
Well, I agree, John. And I found for a guy who doesn't race very much, I just find it sort of ironic. Also, they say the Diamond League works. They're letting like perfect get in the way of good. The Diamond League isn't going to be on TV. It's going to be on a flow track, which you pay $30 a month to watch. It's like so not visible anymore. The Diamond League pretty much is like abandoned the US for trying to be a big viewability product. So I found that interesting. Yeah, but for him, like these hurdler guys don't do a lot of doubling. They have to double 2 races. That's a huge injury risk. Sure, he could pick up 400 grand, but for him, it's not worth it. If he hurts his chances at Worlds or whatever, and it sounds like they inquired, and Noah said sometimes to doubling. Sounds like they inquired, like, can we just run one race? And they were told no.
It's disgraceful that the Diamond League has gone to flow track in the U.S. A couple $100,000 difference in money. World Athletics or USATF should have stepped in and made up the difference because at a minimum, they should try to keep NBC happy, to keep track promoted mainstream. Flow track just gave them more money. These Chinese investors don't care. They want the most money in the return. Whoever bought the media rights to the Diamond League. Roge Runner says, not excited for he's not excited for the Sprinter Grand Slam track because they don't have all the stars, but distance, we've got all the superstars other than Jakob. What are you talking about, Roge Runner? Maybe you're only talking about on the men's side. On the women's side, there's no Faith Kipyegon in the 8:15 group. And then here's your distance women. Tigis Gabasalami of Ethiopia, Elise Cranny, Nozama Tanaki, and Agnes Ngedic. So, no, we don't have all the stars. That's a lie.
Okay, but his last point, Wanyoni versus Hawker, is enough to get me excited about. This 800, 1500 group in Kingston is going to be absurdly entertaining. Like, it's so stacked on the men's side. Like, that in and of itself is enough to get me excited about that meet. Now, we can debate whether that's still going to be, you're going to be psyched to see it the 4th time. But the first time this happens, seeing the Goose, Hawker, Wanyoni, Kerr, and Marco Rupp and Bryce Hoppel all in the same 1500 and all in the same 800, that's going to be fantastic.
But also, I mean, that's true because on the men's side, there might be a little overlap with Wanyoni. But let's think about the women. They're sort of 2 separate events. There's not going to be the 1500 people should beat all the 800 and then vice versa. Do we really want to see it's like 4 good 1500 runners ahead of 4 800 runners? Like, it's just sort of, I mean, if it's a slow tactical race, yeah, but at some point, these are different events. It's like, do I really want to see, like on the American side, most of the, I mean, Kessler is obviously the exception, but most 800 meters aren't going to be competitive in a 1500 meter race. Marco Arap, most likely, he's just going to get really beat in the 1500. Like, Wanyoni is the exception. So at some point, there's like 4 people who matter for the 15. I think on the 8, some of these guys maybe can break up the stuff for the pacing. It'll be kind of interesting the first few times, but finish, the other guy wins the money. But yes, it's interesting, but
plus I think they'll definitely have Josh Cohen for
the
that
talent
season.
in that race is great. So when you have the world's best all 8 in the 1500 and the 8, that's going to be interesting. But like, is that the solution that we need?
Well,
I don't know.
We don't need to keep beating the same point. But the men's 8:15 will be amazing the first meet because they're going to have Hoey too, and it'll be insane. But then after we get it worked out, what?
Hoey's in there?
No, I just think that why wouldn't you get a super hot Hoey who just wins the world indoor title 1 or 2 weeks later? Like, it makes no sense. It's like Mike Smith last year when Nico Young doubled at NCAAs, and then he was debating running him in the 10. I said, Mike, don't overthink this. John and I begged him, like, please run him in 10. I don't want to take credit. Like, I'm going to do it. It's not that hard to think. Like, if I'm in the form of my life, we say, oh, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know. I'm like, dude, if you run him next week, he will be in the Olympics. We were right, John. We were right.
But this Hoey's trying to get ready for the Worlds. He's never made a U.S. team. He might want to take a break after World Indoors.
It's just 2 more weeks. You're in the form of your life. You're going to want to race these guys when you're so hot. You're in the form of your life. They may not be, and then you can take a break. Don't overthink this, Justin Rinaldi. Don't overthink this, Mr. Hoey. You go to World Indoors and you go straight to goddamn Kingston.
I'm with Robert on that one. Strike while the iron's hot, and then you don't need to run the next, like, USA Outdoors until the end of July. Plenty of time to recharge, but I would do that if I were him. Unless you're feeling just totally exhausted by the end of World Indoors, that would be my approach. All right, guys. I think that's going to
Wait.
do it.
So I'm just wondering about this Niels Laros again. I think we all view him as the only one that's going to beat Jakob if he does lose. But I don't see it happening because Jakob is so strong. But Laros is 144, 729 at age 19.
And Jakob's run 7:17.
Well, I know.
Lyles is more of an 8:15 guy right now than 15:5.
But we all admit if he takes down Jakob in the 3, that's incredibly scary for him in the 1500. I mean, Jakob's then irrelevant in the 1500 in terms of gold, basically, in my opinion. And then it just means that Laros is certainly ahead of Nagus, in my opinion, in the 1500. And
if Laros wins the 3000, he's the favorite for gold in the 1500. Like, I'm sorry, I will say that.
No.
What?
So just because he beats Jakob, who didn't even medal last year, he leapfrogs Cole Hawker? No, you guys are way overreacting to one race that hasn't even happened yet. I will say, and Robert, if Jakob gets beaten by Laros, that doesn't mean he's irrelevant in the 1500. That race is 6 months away. Things can change. What I will say is if I'm Jakob and I get beaten in the 3K by Laros, that is alarming if you're a Jakob fan. It is certainly concerning to his chances if he's getting beaten in a specialty distance by a guy who he was quite a lot better than in the Olympics last year. It's alarming, but I'm not going to make bold proclamations like, oh, it's all over. I know exactly how Worlds is going to happen 6 months ago. No, we don't.
And U.S. fans, that it will be at 11:50 a.m. on Sunday morning. Until then,
it's called hyperbole, what Robert's saying. It's like Stephen A. Smith.
But
who may be our next president, John. Robert Johnson could be after Stephen A.
Cole Hawker got beaten by Grant Fisher in a 3K. Grant Fisher was only the bronze medalist in the 5K. Am I concerned about Cole Hawker outdoors? No.
Cole Hawker, Grant Fisher is a 3K runner, better 3K runner than Cole Hawker. Jakob's wheelhouse, his best event is the 3K. Laros is a 800, 1500 meter runner.
All right.
It would be monumental if he beat him. He probably wouldn't. It's too much to say he's the favorite, a guy who's never medaled, but I would be like, holy crap, I got to see what this guy does in his first 15. Maybe it's proven
definitely
down the road that Laros is actually more of a 15.5 guy. That wouldn't shock me. But anyway.
No, Laros is a beast. I think he'll be in the medal conversation this year for sure. But yeah, I just don't want to, I don't know. I'm trying not to overreact to anything just yet.
And our apologies. Some people on YouTube couldn't hear us, but other people clearly said they could. So that means it's not on us, it's on YouTube. But if you want this release, it's just the back end of our Supporters Club podcast. Join today, letsrun.com/subscribe. Use code GOAT50 if you want to save 50% off your first year. Get a free t-shirt. Best club in running. See you guys next week. Oh, and thanks to our new subscribers who signed up for the Shelby interview. That will drop soon for everyone else.